Have you ever heard the story of a young lady who dared to challenge a king? A lady whose visions and voice would shake the very foundations of England. Today, we embark on the fantastic, albeit tragic story of Elizabeth Barton, known as the Holy Maid of Kent, a woman whose words shook the monarchy, sending shockwaves through a kingdom already teetering on the edge of change. Imagine yourself as a young girl, living in 16th century England, at a time when the church was immensely powerful and religion dominated every aspect of life. Imagine that one day you start having visions, intense, powerful, and prophetic. Visions that you believe are messages from God Himself. This is what happened in the life of Elizabeth Barton, a humble servant girl from Kent who, after a sudden illness, claimed to have mystical revelations. But this isn't just a story of visions and miracles. It's a story of faith politics and power. Elizabeth Barton rose from obscurity to become a figure whose every word was feared throughout England, a story of courage and conviction. As we shall see, her visions would lead her to confront one of history's most powerful kings, King Henry VIII. This is a tale of faith, defiance, and sacrifice. Elizabeth was born in 1506 in the village of Kent. Like so many others, she lived a quiet life as a servant until, in 1525, she fell gravely ill at age 19. It was during this illness that she began to receive what she described as divine visions. Not simple dreams, but detailed and disturbing images, which Elizabeth was convinced were direct messages from God. Soon, these visions weren't limited to personal matters. They involved larger, more profound issues regarding the state of the church and the kingdom. News of her visions spread like wildfire. It wasn't long before priests, scholars, and even nobility flocked to her, seeking her advice. They believed Elizabeth had been chosen by God to deliver serious warnings about the future of the nation. Her fame grew. Prophetess, holy woman, visionary. Even the Archbishop of Canterbury took her seriously. But as her influence spread, so did the danger. The higher she rose, the more precarious her position became. And then came the turning point in her life. At the height of her popularity, Elizabeth Barton found herself at the forefront of one of the greatest political conflicts of her time. King Henry VIII's desire to divorce his wife, Catherine of Aragon. You see, Henry VIII was determined to marry Anne Boleyn. But there was a problem. His marriage to Catherine had been sanctified by the Pope, and divorce without the Church's approval would have been seen as a terrible sin. Yet Henry was ready to break ties with the Catholic Church to get his way. Elizabeth Barton foresaw a grim future if the king divorced Catherine and married Anne. She warned that England would be destroyed, and that the king's actions would lead to his death within months. Can you imagine the audacity of her words? This was more than advising. She was directly confronting the most powerful man in the country. And it wasn't just her words that were bold. It was the timing. England stood at a crossroads. The Protestant Reformation was sweeping across Europe, and Henry's divorce was part of this movement. But Elizabeth stood in opposition, her visions feeding the fears of many who saw the king's actions as defiance of God's will. Consider how terrifying it must have been to be a young woman in 16th century England, standing against the king himself. Yet Elizabeth did not back down. She believed with every fiber of her being that her visions were of divine origin. To her, it wasn't an opinion. It was the truth, from above. Of course, there are consequences for challenging a king. Henry VIII did not take kindly to her warnings. To him, Elizabeth's prophecies were not just an attack on his personal life, but a direct challenge to his authority and the future of England. In 1533, Elizabeth was accused of treason and brought before the king's council. Under immense pressure and endless interrogation, she was forced to publicly retract her prophecies. But by then, it didn't matter. Her fate was sealed. In 1534, Elizabeth Barton was hanged. Her body was publicly displayed as a warning to anyone who dared oppose the king. Once thought to speak with the voice of God, Elizabeth was silenced. But this isn't just a story about visions. It's a story about faith, politics, and the cost of standing up for what you believe is right. Elizabeth Barton's voice echoed through England, warning of danger she believed only she could see. But in the end, the world wasn't ready to hear her. Her story reminds us that history is not shaped only by kings and queens, but by ordinary people who dare to speak the truth, even when it's dangerous. She stood against tyranny, against a king who believed he could reshape the world to his will. In the end, she paid the ultimate price, but her courage is something that still resonates today. And so, as we remember the life of Elizabeth Barton, let us draw inspiration from her example. Overwhelming odds or not, she never gave in to that which she knew and believed. She paid the ultimate price for her truth, and in a world that does little but silence voices of dissent, her story begs that we be daring and speak out for what we believe in, no matter the cost it may be. Because, in the end, it is not about how long you live, but about how bravely you stand